rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, welcome back to Rebel Force Radio. This is the weekly show. Sometimes we call it the flagship show, but we know that there are many of you that are finding RFR through our series of after shows that we do on YouTube. Right now we're in the throes of the Bad Batch after show, looking at Season 2. And having a great time Wednesday nights, 8 o'clock Eastern. And won't be too long. We'll be in March, and we'll be doing 2 after shows each week. Mandalorian Season 3 and wrapping up Bad Batch Season 2. It's going to be a great time. But so if you found us through the after shows, we're glad that you're here. The Rebel Force Radio weekly podcast where we cover the rest. You know, I mean, we might touch on a few things here and there that we miss. We've got a little update about the latest episode of the Bad Batch Tribe coming up. Also, in the cantina, our pal, the great FJ DeSanto, we're gonna be picking his brain about all kinds of stuff. We're gonna be talking about how the Andor season wrapped up, what his thoughts are on the future of Star Wars and streaming, where the shows like The Acolyte and Ahsoka. We're going to be talking about all kinds of things. That's coming up later in the program, and it's always good to catch up with FJ. He is one of us, that's for sure. And another one that's one of us, of course he's one of us. He's my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Glad to be back for another weekly show. Boy, the Bad Batch was really a lot of fun this week. I had a great time on the after show, and now I'm happy to be back for the weekly show because, yes, we have FJ. And I do want to point out, Jason, that I really enjoyed the new video show open that you crafted.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, people, our Patreon RFR All Access members are able to see full show video, and they probably all enjoyed that new intro a great deal. But yeah,
gave it a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah, looked great, man. New year, new intro. We're on fire here. We're coming out of the gate strong for 2023 on RFR.
Indeed. But as I said, the Bad Batch after shows, they're so much fun to do. And we get to hear from all of our listeners, those that are brave enough to call. But many of them just show up in the chat and they leave comments and they do the thumbs up and all that stuff. And it's just so much. It really adds to new Star Wars coming out each and every week. I think I look forward to the after shows just as much as I do actually seeing the episodes because what it does is, maybe an episode comes along, this episode or last week's Tribe, and you go, I don't know if there was really much to it. But all of a sudden, 90 minutes goes by of great discussion and phone calls and reading chats and all of that, and you go, hey, that was actually something, And so you just sort of relive it, rediscover it in a whole new way, and that's because of you all. And we just got done watching Tribe this week and doing the after show. And Jim, you had said on the after show that you went down all these rabbit holes. That this episode sort of uncorked a lot, things that you sort of remembered hearing from the past, and you've brought some of that with you this week.
Yeah, well, I mean, specifically, it's that crazy descriptive audio track that does it to me every time. And this time around, I had it on. I watched my first viewing of Bad Batch. I just watch it plain and pure. No subtitles, no descriptive track, nothing like that. I just soak it in. Then the next time I watch it, I'm taking notes. I got the descriptive track on. I got the subtitles on. And so I'm like, what are those weird creatures there? And so I start looking at these weird creatures on the screen, and the descriptive audio track refers to these creatures on the planet Kashyyyk, the Kinrath. The Kinrath. And I'm like, boy, I swear to God, we saw those somewhere before. So Googling Kinrath. And then that takes me down a whole rabbit hole where it leads me to a panel from 2015 at the Star Wars convention in Anaheim, 2015, Untold Clone Wars, right? And Jason, we couldn't see this because you and me were hosting one of the main stages for that whole week. So we were stuck on that stage and really didn't get to experience the convention itself, and we missed some great panels. So thankfully, they put some complete panels onto YouTube. This is one of them. It's called Untold Clone Wars. And they describe all of these story arcs and ideas and concepts that they were developing for Clone Wars at the time it was canceled. So it was really a very revealing panel. And in that panel, there's concept art shown of Wookiees and some of those beasts that we see on Kashyyyk in this new episode of Bad Batch Tribe. This stuff has been revealed as dating back at least a decade or more as far as the concept goes, because the Bad Batch were originally supposed to be introduced in the Clone Wars. I mean, I know they were introduced in the Clone Wars in that final season, but it was going to be vastly different. The rollout for the Bad Batch would have been on Kashyyyk, and on Kashyyyk, the Separatists would have been invading the planet, and the Bad Batch were there to help the Wookiee warriors fight back the Separatists' invasion, and they would face, these creatures, the Kinrath those other creatures with those big mouse ears.
Yeah, the mouse-eared things that the Wookiees are riding around on.
Right. So all of this gets talked about in a panel from 8 years ago, and these are concepts that were in development maybe even a dozen years ago, well before the sale of Star Wars to Disney. So I pulled some highlights from that panel, just because we didn't really have time to sit there and listen to this audio during the after show. I thought I would highlight some of them and play them here on RFR. So the first one is Dave Filoni, circa 2015, talking about the Bad Batch. And he's talking about the Bad Batch, this is 5.5 years before we actually see them then appear on screen in that final season of Clone Wars. Well, Filoni was talking about it back in 2015 in the Untold Clone Wars panel, and here he is describing how the origin of the Bad Batch goes back to George Lucas ideas.
George wanted to explore the idea that there were clones that had kind of, at creation, at birth, specialized traits. And after the Clone 99 incident at the beginning of that, Rookies, the previous episode, that the Kaminoans and the Republic had decided not to kind of dispose of some aberrations like 99, but to actually impose further mutation on them to create genetic super soldiers, kind of. So the Bad Batch were the expression of these elite squad super soldiers, and the writers, especially Matt Michnovetz, got very into the Bad Batch. Was his favorite, so much so that I keep forgetting that he didn't write the first arc. It was Brent Friedman, which was rather shocking to me, because Matt talks about Bad Batch all the time. It's all he talks about. He'll be in Rebels, he talks about Bad Batch all the time.
Yeah, you were saying earlier this week, Matt Michnovetz he's the Bad Batch guy, and he is the story editor on the series, which is great, and wrote this past week's episode.
Mm-hmm. So he was probably one of the guys behind the scenes really pushing the idea of bringing the Bad Batch back, or even bringing the Clone Wars back, responding to our hashtag Save the Clone Wars, which we were the first ever to tweet back in 2013. In another clip, Filoni refers to the canceled Kashyyyk arc from the Clone Wars, and he shows a picture of Tarful communicating with the trees in a very similar way in which we see Gungi and Omega doing in this new episode of Bad Batch Tribe. Again, ideas going way, way back. So here's Filoni talking about the canceled Kashyyyk arc, talking about how it was Tarful who was there communicating with the trees, and the conflict with the Separatists.
Tarful basically was asking permission of the forest to kind of go into battle and do some things that were rather challenging. In a bigger portion of the story arc, it was a Trandoshan leader was working for the Separatists, and basically they had an alliance with the Separatists to attack Kashyyyk, and in order to kind of get them out of the city of trees, the Wookiees were going to have to burn a portion of the forest. The clones had no problem doing this because strategically it made sense, but it was very upsetting to the Wookiees. So you had kind of a push and pull dynamic between the Wookiees and the clones where they didn't really get along, but they were trying to find a common purpose in fighting the Separatists.
You see, that's just why the Wookiees can't be Jedi. Can't make the tough decisions. Can't make the tough calls about burning down the forest.
it was the clone troopers making the tough decisions, not the Jedi. And the Wookiees, you know.
I mean, the Jedi were there. I mean, they're the generals of the clone troopers.
Yeah, but they may have been sympathetic to the Wookiees' cause because the Jedi's
always on the fence.
The Jedi are fueled by compassion. And they would be compassionate to the Wookiees because the Wookiees have this symbiotic relationship with the trees, man.
Yeah.
And so there's Tarful, and he's there on his knee with the head bowed to the tree, staring at the trunk of the thing, waiting for it to start talking to him like he's in the, Emerald City of Oz there, skipping down the yellow brick road.
I looked at it,
how'd you like it if somebody picked something off you?
That's what, I love that tree. I love that guy. Yeah. He's the best. I love that. I looked at it like almost like the Wailing Wall, over in Israel. You have the folks of the Jewish faith as they go and they do the Wailing Wall. That's kind of what it looked like to me in the episode Tribe,
right,
where they were all lined up doing it. And it was, of course, really sweet at the end of the episode when you saw Gungi and Omega doing it and going through that ritual. And I like this idea of Omega sort of on this quest to find herself, and in the quest to find herself, she's experimenting with these other cultures and beliefs and faiths and all that. So I like that very much.
Yeah, pretty soon she'll be showing up at your doorstep, handing you a pamphlet and talking to you about the Hare Krishna. But I mean, that used to happen. That used to be a thing. That used to happen in the 70s and 80s. It did happen. Your doorbell would ring, and somebody had a lecture for you in a pamphlet.
Right. They were either Jehovah's Witnesses, they were Mormons, or they were the Hare Krishnas.
Yeah. God bless them all. And God bless the trees. And it's more than just the Wailing Wall, because these trees, they do communicate. They do somehow, through some energy, they're able to impart wisdom and knowledge to the Wookiees. And even Gungi was all like, hey, the trees have a plan. You gotta get down with it. The trees
have a plan. Yeah.
It's funny, the trees were more communicative about their plan than Admiral Holdo was about hers in the Last Jedi. The trees
You're saying that the trees were a little bit more conversant than Admiral Holdo.
They were more transparent.
Yeah.
So one last one. Those Wookiee mounts that we saw in the episode.
Yeah.
They were multicolored. They looked. Jason's showing some concept art here. This is a Filoni sketch of what they initially looked like. I think they're a little more exaggerated in the Bad Batch. Maybe the legs aren't as long and the ears are much larger, but they're sort of a cross between a monkey and a mouse in a way. And
like a lemur or something, maybe.
Yeah, I see that. And maybe, they weren't really talked about very much in the episode. They weren't even discussed at all. They weren't given a name.
No.
The Wookiees just showed up riding them.
Even in closed captions, you didn't get a name of the
there was nothing.
Yeah.
So we just called them like the mouse-eared Wookiee mounts or giant mounts. But there's more of a story behind those guys. And again, coming from George Lucas. And Filoni talks a little bit about it back in 2015 at the Untold Clone Wars panel. And here's what he had to say.
George had this idea that the Wookiees knew these giant tree spirits. The Wookiees could kind of summon these giant tree gods and ride them, but it was a very kind of religious thing for them. They didn't like to do it. They didn't like to take them necessarily into battle. It was a kind of a benevolent way of looking at their existence with nature, really.
The tree gods. Okay, so maybe is that the name of them now? Is that what we got to call them?
Tree gods. As far as I'm concerned, they're the tree gods. It sounds a lot better than large mouse-eared Wookiee mount. Tree gods. They're the Kashyyyk tree gods.
Yeah, it is better than that. I agree. So that's just crazy. All the way back to 2015 at Celebration Anaheim.
Well, that's when these ideas were revealed.
Yeah.
That's when these ideas were revealed, but how long were they in development before then? Many years, actually.
Yeah.
Many years.
Well, George is notorious. Not that George is obviously working on this stuff now, but he was so hell-bent on keeping all kinds of ideas. He never threw anything away. All those maquettes, all those sketches, he never knew when something might bubble up and be useful again. And they're carrying on that legacy, it seems like.
It's good to see that the integrity of George Lucas's methods and his way of creating and maintaining content, even the stuff that didn't get used, is getting revisited. We talked about the McQuarrie art recently, about how, ideas that were thrown away, discarded by Lucas and McQuarrie, they are now finding fresh life in Star Wars projects everywhere too. So that way we keep getting contributions from great talent that's long gone now. Guys like Ralph McQuarrie, they're still contributing to Star Wars. So that's really great to think about it.
Yeah, that just because they're no longer with us doesn't mean that their contributions can't be seen, felt, and heard. Speaking of contributions, we got a couple of we suffered a couple of losses here, and you might be saying, "Well, I don't know if these are necessarily losses in terms of Star Wars," but we're gonna show you otherwise. Cindy Williams, best known to audiences as Shirley Feeney in the hit sitcom Laverne and Shirley. One of my favorites. It was such a staple, Jim, coming home after school and watching the syndication run of Laverne and Shirley. I don't remember.
I go back to the first run.
Yeah, Jim remembers when it was in prime time. It was must-see TV back then.
It was Tuesday nights, ABC, Tuesday nights. It was a great night. You had Happy Days first, which was 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern,
right?
Followed by Laverne and Shirley, then Three's Company. And I think maybe Soap was on after that. It was just like this incredible run. That was the original must-see TV night of the mid to late 70s was Tuesday nights on ABC. Laverne and Shirley, man, what a great show.
Yeah, but Cindy Williams was also a key figure in sort of helping to make George Lucas's career. She played Laurie in American Graffiti opposite Ron Howard. Had some great scenes with Harrison Ford there at the end of the film when she wants to date the bad boy for a little bit. And eventually, through her connections to George Lucas, was able to audition for the role of Princess Leia Organa.
Yes.
It wasn't that long ago, Jim, that these audition tapes officially became available to us as fans. Like I say, in an official capacity. I think they had been bootlegged a lot, but now we can
I don't think they've never been completely released in an official capacity. They've shown up in documentaries and whatnot.
Right, yeah.
But, there was a bootleg out there, a VHS tape that was floating around Comic Cons and flea markets for years. I have a copy of it, you know, the complete Star Wars auditions, all black and white. You have a whole slew of incredible people from William Katz, Robbie Benson.
That Robert Englund
Cindy
audition never showed up, though.
No.
Not in video format, at least.
No. It's not everyone who ever auditioned for Star Wars. You do see Carrie Fisher's audition in there. And Harrison Ford is reading as Han Solo with a lot of the actresses as well. But he was just there, you know, to do that. In the meantime, he was winning the role, but... So we have some stuff here to look back at those auditions, specifically to remember the life of the late, great Cindy Williams. She did audition for the role of Princess Leia. And in 2015, she was interviewed about her Star Wars, her brush with Star Wars. Obviously, 2015 was a big year for Star Wars. The hype machine for The Force Awakens was going in full steam. So anyone who had any sort of vague connection to Star Wars anywhere in their career was being questioned about it. And so Cindy talked a little bit about it with the Television Academy. That's who she talked to, the Television Academy. And she had some memories about what it was like to audition for Star Wars.
I remember this dialogue that was impossible to say, because it was like the Cretans on planet, you know, in the universe in the galaxy of, you know, Frifaten, or it just went on. And I just, and it was, in my mind's eye, I think it was in the same studio that I auditioned for American Graffiti. I'm not sure, but I thought, oh, this is unbelievable. And I remember Harrison and Frederick Forrest is who I auditioned with. And I remember him going, geez, this is something. I mean, it was very difficult, but that's all I remember about that. I think I was doing Laverne and Shirley at the time.
Yeah, I think she was, because Laverne and Shirley ran from 1976 to 1982.
Yeah. No, she wasn't not quite working on Laverne and Shirley yet. Maybe she was starring as Shirley Feeney in some like Happy Days episodes.
Yeah, that might be what she's remembering, because it was a spinoff of Happy Days, because they were a couple of chicks that the Fonz, Laverne was one of the Fonz's chicks that he would call up when he needed a date.
Hey. So Cindy Williams, it sounded like the material being presented to her to read off of the page was completely confounding. And so we're going to get a taste of what her actual audition was like. Here she is reading for the role of Princess Leia alongside Frederick Forrest, not Harrison Ford, but Frederick Forrest. I know Frederick Forrest the best as Chef from Apocalypse Now, but he did a bunch of Coppola movies and stuff. And it's interesting to listen to Cindy read her dialogue with Frederick, because Frederick definitely gives me Matthew McConaughey type vibes, you know, Matthew McConaughey.
I can see that, yeah.
And when you hear this audio, just sure, you can picture Chef from Apocalypse Now, but I prefer to picture Matthew McConaughey.
Bad time you used it all.
13, take 2, camera roll 2.
She slaps herself in the face to get her ready for
It's been a long night.
Well, all the data banks in Little R2 are still secure.
Well, then I think we're due that reward that you promised, don't you think? And I hope it's substantial after all we've gone through.
When Little R2 has been safely delivered to my forces, you'll receive your reward. You have my guarantee.
Well, what's that little droid carrying anyway that's so blasted important? Huh?
The plans and specifications to a battle station with enough firepower to destroy an entire system. Our only hope in destroying it is to find its weakness, which we will determine from the data I stored in R2.
It cuts off there. Oh, shoot.
That's all we have of the video.
Full clip. But, you get the idea of what a Shirley Feeney version of
Yeah. You can hear she's struggling with that dialogue. Is she?
Oh, for
she
sure.
sounds like she's reading. It's not a very. It's not a great audition.
Right. No.
So then again, let's fast forward now to 2015 when she's being asked about those auditions by the Television Academy, and so she has some way of rationalizing why she didn't get the role.
I thought he's going to hire someone younger because initially, because we all knew about this movie when we did American Graffiti, that he was writing this other movie. And he wanted them to be, all those characters to be like 14, 15, if I'm not mistaken. And I knew that. And then by the time I got around, to Star Wars, auditioning for that, I was 26. And so I had that dream, and I knew I wasn't going to get it. I knew it was going to be someone younger than me. And I think Carrie was just 18 or something when she got it. But you could never think of anyone else being Princess Leia. I mean, you just couldn't.
She got that right.
Since she passed, obviously all the tributes, of course, Jim, come pouring out, and nobody has a bad thing to say about Cindy Williams. No one. She's a really sweet lady, from what I gather, and she did patch things up with her co-star Penny Marshall before Penny passed away.
I didn't know they had a falling out.
They did have a falling out. So everyone wonders, like, why did she leave Laverne and Shirley? It was a hit show. It was consistently in the top 10. And the reality is, going into season 8, she got pregnant. She was married. She got pregnant. She got married in the series. Also, her character in the first episode of the 8th season. And the studio, the executives, one of them being Gary Marshall, Penny Marshall's brother, was not willing to make any concessions. And Cindy thought, well, they would do what they did with Lucille Ball. They would cut around it. They would have her, always holding something to disguise the pregnancy. And that was something that they just weren't willing to do. They had her sign a contract, or they asked her to sign a contract, which would have her working up until her due date. And it was just a period of time where, studios just weren't sympathetic to these sorts of things. And so she left. But I got another clip I want to spring on you, because in a weird twist of fate. So you got Cindy Williams auditioning for the role of Princess Leia Organa. Mm-hmm. She gets this. She doesn't get it. She gets this big TV show. She becomes a big TV star. She has to leave. Season 8, episode 5. Guess who shows up after Shirley Feeney leaves the series? Yeah, Carrie Fisher. Check this out.
Dressed as a Playboy bunny. Looks like they're in the Playboy Club.
So here comes, look at that. Carrie Fisher in a Playboy bunny outfit. This is just an excuse for me to look at Carrie Fisher in a Playboy bunny outfit. Hey, look, there comes Hef. Hugh Hefner, guest star appearance. You're watching early 80s television. But I just thought it was so interesting.
Could you tell me first whether you think I'm just a little bit more...
that you had
look a little flushed. Oh, thank you.
Cindy Williams auditioning for the role of Princess Leia, not getting it. Carrie Fisher getting it, and then Carrie Fisher coming in to guest star and fill the gap from the untimely exit of Cindy Williams on Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah.
But, she has it. They have a similar look. They kind of have that girl next door look.
Why don't you see if Mr. Hefner would
I see that. And both are very funny.
Very funny. Yeah.
Carrie Fisher and Penny Marshall had a really strong friendship.
Hi, Mr. Hefner.
They were super tight friends, and Carrie talks about Penny Marshall, I believe, in one of her books.
Wanted something?
And they were best pals. There's Hef with Laverne. Laverne used to drink a mixture of milk and Pepsi Cola.
That's
to this day, I still have not been curious enough to whip up that myself to see what
You've never done the Pepsi milk challenge?
I've never done it. No. Oddly.
Yeah, it's very good.
Maybe we'll have to do that at a live show sometime.
I'll bring you side.
Milk and Pepsi challenge.
Well, rest in peace to Cindy Williams, a really For all intents and everything, as far as I know, a really classy lady, and I love American Graffiti. It's my second favorite George Lucas movie of all time.
Would say that.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and it's a great escape to I don't want to say a better time, just a different time. It's wonderful, and she played a great character of Lori. And if you haven't, I know we get a lot of younger listeners to the program. If you haven't checked out American Graffiti, please do.
Oh, you have to.
You got to watch it. You really understand where George came from, I think.
I rewatched it over the summer again, and man, does that movie hold up. It's priceless and ageless and wonderful. And another guy who was that way all the way up to the end was the late, great David Crosby, member of the Byrds and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer 2 times over. We lost Cros last week. Legendary, outspoken, and at times quite abrasive. Crosby managed to piss off just about everyone he ever worked with.
Dude, I saw this on the rundown, and I know you're Jimmy Mack is, he's got a lot of passions. Star Wars is probably his top passion, but another one is classic rock. So when I saw this and I go, all right, so Mac wants to take a little time and honor the legacy of David Crosby, but we got to keep this thing Star Wars. I'm like, what is the David Crosby connection to Star Wars?
That's right. Yeah, right. This is no random shout out. We're giving the Cros his time here on RFR because, we acknowledge his great talents and his amazing presence on the music scene for almost 60 years. But here at Rebel Force Radio, we care about one thing and one thing only. It's his Star Wars fandom. And Cros was a huge Star Wars fan. As a matter of fact, he talked about Star Wars in his book. He said, the movie I've seen the most times, boy, that's a tough one. It would have to be a toss-up between Apocalypse Now and the first Star Wars. I think the first Star Wars. So Cros, he's a guy who's seen Star Wars 500 times. And that's why we love Cros. But, he is David Crosby. So he can't love something without being opinionated about it and maybe even a little harshly critical. And in this quote from Crosby, he reveals, Alec Guinness classed up that movie, Star Wars. Nobody else in that movie knew how to act. Nobody else had a clue of what they were doing. The young guy was a complete loss. Absolutely. Hamill. He's talking about Mark Hamill. Absolutely couldn't act his way out of a bag. But Alec Guinness carried that movie. He was such a class act. It elevated the film to be a joy to watch.
Oh, so, man.
Cros' his team. He's Team Kenobi. He's Team Ben. He's Team Ben. And Crosby maintained his passion for Star Wars throughout the streaming era. It was more than just movies. David was there with us watching all the shows we watch on Disney+. Somebody asked him, this is I know this is a family program, ladies and gentlemen, but this is an appropriate question if you're going to ask somebody who was a big-time focal point of the counterculture revolution of the 60s, and with the acceptance of herb today, it's very acceptable for somebody a guy named McBrizzle asks David Crosby on Twitter, are you into the edibles or still smoking only? I mean, if you're going to ask anyone this question, David Crosby would be the guy to ask.
Right.
And Cros says, currently we vape flowers and make really amazing cookies. Both. And just for tradition's sake, we smoke one of my son's perfect spliffs and watch Mandalorian. Oh, wow, man.
The only way to watch Mando, high with David Crosby.
Oh, could you imagine the conversation? Did you see that jump to light speed, man? Whoa. But Cros follows it up. He also says, we do also watch Boba Fett. Partly just for the hopes of Mandalorian showing up.
Oh, he's one of us, right? He's watching it. He's watching it just hoping the Mando shows up. Oh,
but he also enjoys the incredible visuals.
Oh, he had to throw that in.
All right, and
Especially
then
when he's toking it up there. Those visuals.
Now, David, he passed away on the 18th of January at the age of 81, but he did have one final Star Wars review, and that was October 5th, 2022. He gave us an Andor review.
No kidding.
Cross says on Twitter, those of us who love the original Star Wars have been waiting, watching each spin-off come out, hoping, but finally, Andor, writing, a plot, actors, good ones, so delicious. Please give us more, lots more. This is high grade. Nice.
Oh, man, that's a nice review from music legend, two-time Rock Hall of Famer David Crosby. Sadly, Cros wouldn't live long enough to see season 2.
No, I know. That really hurts me.
Andor.
Now that I know how much he loved Andor, he's not going to see it all pay off, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe there's a screening room where he can sit down and give that a spin up there.
Well, he can be up there. He can be talking to Alec Guinness, for all we know right now. Man, you really classed up that movie with that hack Hamill.
That other guy, he was just awful. And Guinness would be saying like, well, I wouldn't say this if I was still on Earth, but he had a lot to learn, let's just say.
Now, promise me that you'll never, ever, ever, ever watch Star Wars again, David Crosby.
He made Cross cry? He made Cross cry.
In heaven. He's making him cry in heaven, man. I saw the stardust of madness in his eyes.
Oh, you definitely see that with Cross. There's a stardust, pixie dust, any kind of dust you could think of would be in his eyes.
Oh man,
David Crosby, what a legend!
Wow.
Though, and he was still out there performing. He's got an album coming out. He had a tour planned.
What a shame! So this was not. He was not an ill man, at least as far as
he
we
was.
know.
He was.
Oh, he was.
He'd been through the ringer. I mean, he had everything. He had heart problems. He was a diabetic. Obviously, a recovering addict, an alcoholic, liver. He had a liver transplant. The thing that really, and all of those factors come into play with him passing away at age 81. But he was in day 5 of COVID, and he went to take a nap and just never got up from it. So hopefully he was dreaming about Mandalorian and Alec Guinness and Andor.
Rest in peace, both Cindy Williams and David Crosby. Hope you enjoyed that connection. Because Star Wars does unite us, man. You're just people you never would have thought you have anything in common with. Well, you find out they're a Star Wars fan. That's right. Speaking of connections, we're going to go into the cantina. I'm a little thirsty myself, and we're going to check in with our good friend, F.J. DeSanto.
Star Wars Cantina.
Where are you going, Master? For a drink.
Sorry about the mess. You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
All right, back in the cantina. Our good pal, he's a writer, he's a producer, he's a showrunner, FJ DeSanto, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, FJ.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You might say that your appearance...
I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, you might say your appearance is by demand. I don't know about popular demand, but by demand. We'll go with
by like 3 people. Maximum.
Well, okay. Well, as long as there's a quorum that want to see you on the show. We always want to see you on the show. Add 2 more votes to it. Me and Mac, we always want to see you. Every time we get a chance to talk.
Yeah, we were the 3.
What's that? We're the 2 of the 3. Oh God! But you're always laying some great wisdom on us offline. So it's great to get this online and on the record on the program. And what I mean is you're an industry guy, so a lot of times you bring us down to earth. You might hear me or Mac or somebody else, we won't mention any names, ranting and raving over emails, and you're always the guy that goes, all right, okay, calm down, you effing... And you kind of just lay some reality on us, and that's very, very important because we as Star Wars fans, and you yourself, are very passionate, and we want things to be a certain way, but you also know the world and the industry that these things are made in, and it's not always as simple as fans try to make it out to be. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you tolerating me every day talking about these things.
Well, I wonder how you tolerate us sometimes. I do want to know, we had Andor wrap up, and we haven't had a chance to talk since Andor finished. So how satisfied were you with the end, and are you looking forward to season 2?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was off the charts good. We talked about this a few times when I've been on, where it's like the show grew into being a Star Wars show. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of like it was this political drama, right? And that just happened to take place in the Star Wars universe. But as it kept going, it became more and more Star Wars, at least to me. So
do you think that was by design, FJ? Do you think that it was meant to be maybe, I don't know if you would say more approachable from the outset? Why do you think it sort of warmed itself up into being a Star Wars show and wanted to initially begin with some amount of restraint in how much Star Warsiness was infused?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there was an intention. This is my own interpretation of it. To establish those characters before you establish the full global conflict. And I think, like a lot of these prequel shows or movies, they know what they're building towards, right? So they know in the 2 seasons they're going to do with this show, it has to end at Rogue One, right? So it's almost like they're weirdly working backwards. So I feel like we're going to get even more Star Wars-y sort of in-universe stuff in the 2nd season. But they built a foundation of these characters, in my opinion, very, very strongly in those initial episodes. And I think it was a slow burn. And, I think, occasionally you can see Star Wars being done by non-Star Wars fans, if that makes sense. Like JJ, when he did Star Trek, he wasn't a Star Trek guy, and I think that perspective created a good Star Trek movie, one good Star Trek movie. And I think in this case, because the Gilroys didn't have, a quote-unquote affinity for Star Wars, they were able to look at it with a certain perspective and create something very, very appealing that you could eventually pepper Star Wars things in as you kept going. And that balance just worked. It just worked really strongly with the show. And, and I think because they had already established Andor as a character, he's the least likable character in the whole show. His mom's more likable, and,
so true.
And you have this, group of people that, I'm totally on board with, etc. Because, they sort of, I feel like it's almost reversed engineered. Sort of like, we know Andor starts here. How do we build it back? And I've mentioned this a million times, is you got to remember, the first time we meet Andor in Rogue One, he murders somebody who's an ally.
Right.
You know what I mean? So he's not going to be this lovable guy when you first meet him. What does it take to get to that place? And I think the show's done a great job of that. That finale was phenomenal television. And again, by the time it's over and you have those seeds of the rebellion, like the rebellion kicks off here, and I think that's really fascinating. I loved it. And I feel like we'll get Mandalorian to give us that sort of space opera, traditional Star Wars fare, we're emotionally invested in those characters, and we're going to go to Mandalore and do all this crazy shit. And I feel like what the Gilroys have been able to do with Andor is say, hey, here's our political, drama, that can exist in this world. Like, it's almost like, like when Marvel did X amount of years of Marvel movies, and then they introduced Guardians of the Galaxy, which you realize, if you take a step back, was a huge risk because they hadn't done anything comedic. They hadn't done anything in space. They hadn't done anything. And that gamble paid off, and now you have that Marvel space universe, right?
Yeah, I feel like really
now
thought
Andor
about
gives us
Guardians as sort of another, you might call it a front in the whole Marvel cinematic universe. That's
right.
interesting.
It's an expansion of it, and that's what Andor is. It's an expansion where it's giving us more color to the universe, but on, in my opinion, a really grounded, level. Like, it's a street. I'm sure I said this last time I was on. It's street level Star Wars, which we don't really get. Everything we got is in space and the galaxy and the Jedi and all this stuff. This is, hey, what happened to the real people of the galaxy during all that stuff that we know? Well, this shit happened, and it's great. And when the mom gives the speech, the hologram speech, it's crazy.
Yeah, just
really
how
good.
sad were you that they didn't drop an F-bomb in that speech? I know all of our hearts went out to you.
If you watch that, you can see she says the F word.
You're a believer? You think,
you can read the lips. You can read her lips.
Yeah.
I had
She's
people
clearly,
telling me for weeks in advance there was going to be an F-bomb.
Yeah. Well, they had to tell
And by the
F-bomb
way,
to say
that's a really awkward line, fight the Empire. You know what I mean? Like, you just know it was the F-bomb. It was
Hey, I've watched enough coaches on sidelines in games. I know what that word looks like, in addition to what it sounds like.
It's like this very quick cut, but you can see what she originally said.
Yeah,
they probably had to drag that poor woman back into ADR and just say, "Can you say fight?" Okay.
And then he called them all a bunch of pussies, and then she took off.
The Empire.
Oh man, I want to go back, if I could, real quick. I want to go back to something you said about you were drawing
the problem is you remember everything I said. I don't remember anything.
It was like 3 minutes ago. So you were talking about the Gilroys, and you drew a comparison to J.J. Abrams, and you're talking about them not necessarily being fans. How? Because I'm with you on that. I think Nicholas Meyer did so much for the Star Trek franchise, the original cast films coming out with Star Trek II, and he was not a fan, but he did dive in. He dove into the lore. How not of a fan can you be and still helm a project in a big franchise like a Star Wars or a Star Trek? How not of a fan can you be? When does it start to hurt the product?
I'll give you an example of that process gone wrong, simply because I was just having dinner with the writer of this movie, is Green Lantern. When you have a director who has a great track record, Martin Campbell, but inherently didn't understand the strengths of the property, right? So you end up having something that's a mishmash of a lot of his interpretation of what we think it is, and subsequently it fails miserably. What they've done with Andor, in my opinion, is let's focus on these characters in this drama. And again, I think they have the advantage of knowing where Rogue One starts, so where you have to get this character of Andor and how to build around him. So, and then I think everything is gravy after that. Like, we've talked extensively, especially offline, about the story group. But that's where the story group comes in really handy, which is mention this planet, or mention this place, or mention this thing, or, this droid could be this, and put this in the background and stuff like that. And you flesh it out into a Star Wars show. And I think that works. But I think the reason Andor works better than I even think Boba Fett or Obi-Wan worked was it didn't have the baggage other than the single character that we had no background about, right? So the
Right.
the weight of the expectation is different, but it also allows you a certain creative canvas that you wouldn't get doing Boba Fett or Obi-Wan.
Right, more blue sky opportunities with the character, and you're not beholden to decade after decade of mythology. Was there anything that really surprised you in the second half of Andor? I can't remember if we had any profit or loser predictions.
I think
from
we
you.
did. I think we did at one point.
Yeah.
Though that might have been for Obi-Wan. My memory's garbage. I don't think anything surprised me. It just impressed me more. Right? Like, again, I don't remember which episode's which, but like after the heist and he kills that guy while the other guy's dying in the medical tent
Right.
or whatever. Like, I thought that was great. And I really like the arc of this guy who's basically been ostracized and he's becoming radicalized with an obsession with Andor, and I can't wait till how that builds.
The manifesto. Do you think the manifesto is still going to come into play in season 2?
The manifesto is going to be a big thing. At least in terms of his full decision to sign up. There's that bit where Skarsgård is in that like weird underground world where the Imperial mole comes out in the elevator.
Yeah.
That's the best scene in the whole series.
Yeah.
Right? First of all, the design is great. It's total Star Wars. And that's another example of like how to build something that looks totally Star Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his whole thing is like, I live with this every day. Like that said more about the rebellion than anything for me. You know what I mean? Like he's obviously going to die at some point. I think he actually, you can put this as profit and loser if we didn't talk about this last time. I think the Stellan Skarsgård character is going to die in order to protect Mon Mothma from, So that scene is the best scene in the whole series. And then I think subsequently he's going to make some sacrifice that's going to, because look, when we get to Rogue One, Mon Mothma's on Yavin. She's there. She's already committed. She's not wearing the elegant, gorgeous dresses anymore. I think, she's going to leave her family, and I think something's going to happen where he makes a sacrifice in order for her to lead the rebellion.
Well, his whole monologue really does foreshadow this kind of sacrifice. He talks about, he's working for it's very poetic. I can't do it justice, but I think he says, I'm working for a sunrise that I'll never see. It's a brilliant piece of writing. I
and then you have that bit,
it.
by the way, when he gets chased in the ship, when he gets pulled over by that, I don't know, it's like a Star Destroyer scout ship or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he's got the laser beams on the side of the ship and all that stuff.
I think it's a traffic cop.
All right, this is where we kill him. Like, this is it. Like, I thought he's done here. And then he does this badass escape, which shows you how fragile the rebellion is at that point. And there's going to be an interesting thing I also think that's going to happen in the second season, where they're going to have to start to unify the tribes of the rebellion, unify the different factions. And I'm hoping we get a cameo from the Rebels crew, because the majority of them are going to be in the Ahsoka show anyway. You know what I mean? Why not have them pop up? Like, we're going to bring this crew, Saw Gerrera, all these guys together.
Wow. It would be really something to see in a series as serious and grounded as Andor, to see characters out of animation showing up in there, like in Rebels. That would, I think, elevate those characters to a degree that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything significant. It could just be like, because even Rogue One, remember, has sort of Easter eggs of Rebels in it.
Right.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
It just needs to be like Mon Mothma on Yavin welcoming the groups, and here's the Rebels group, right? Like, it's just, here's the simple little thing that ties it all together. And Ahsoka, whatever her code name was in Rebels before we saw her, like I said, my memory is garbage.
Fulcrum.
The Fulcrum.
Fulcrum, like, here's Fulcrum, here's all this shit. I think you tie all that together, and there's something really fun and intriguing that expands the universe without dumbing it down or, making it fan service or whatever.
Well, I think there's definitely potential for that happening. We certainly have seen a lot of animation characters cross over into live action. Way more than I would.
We're going to see a lot more in Ahsoka, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that'll really pick up the whole storyline that was left at the end of Star Wars Rebels. And then that prologue during the last episode of Rebels, which takes place, in the Mandalorian era, right? Wouldn't you assume? If
I think you can finagle it, even if it wasn't intended that way. I think you can finagle it where it happened. I mean, you've already set Ahsoka's mission up in the Mandalorian, so anything after that's gravy.
Gravy. Get on the gravy train. And so that's what's going to be happening. It's just going to pick up. It's going to take that final moment in that last episode of Rebels and show you what happens after Ahsoka and Sabine leave Lothal to go search for Ezra and Thrawn. I wonder who's going to play Thrawn. Do we know who's going to play Thrawn in the Ahsoka series?
It's not been officially announced.
But they haven't announced anything yet. And, they tried to, I'm talking way off the record here. They did announce who's playing Ezra, but they desperately tried to squash that in the press because they didn't want to give away that she finds Ezra in the show. But
so by announcing the casting, they give away that she's successful in.
So they
finding it.
I don't think they actually, unless I'm wrong, like whatever the last celebration or D23, they didn't bring the Ezra actor out because the belief was they didn't want to give that away.
Right. And there are rumors that Lars Mikkelsen is going to reprise the role in live action form.
I think he actually shot that down recently, but you know how that goes with Star Wars casting.
Right.
Well, they shot Ahsoka, so there's somebody playing that role if they have him in it, so.
Right.
The question is, how early is he going to be in the show? Is it a whole season of trying to find him, or do you find him halfway? I mean, if they find Ezra, they got to find Thrawn, right? So,
right.
Who the hell knows? I'm cautiously optimistic for that show. Like, I think that's going to be really good.
Where do you think it's going to
optimistic?
Yeah, where do you think it's going to fit in, FJ, tonally? If you've got, we look at what we've seen so far: Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi, Mando, and
I think it's
Andor.
in the Mando tone and all that stuff. I think that and Skeleton Crew will all exist in that same era, so it all be a certain tone. Like
that's the real wild card, isn't it? Skeleton Crew.
Say again.
I said that's the real wild card. I feel like in all this Skeleton Crew, we don't really know what to expect.
I
just came out of nowhere.
And the Acolyte. I'm excited to see them try and do different things with new characters. I think, as we saw with Boba Fett and Obi-Wan, and this is sort of what, I don't know, one of you guys was saying earlier, is that you end up tripping over your own feet of the legacy and expectation of these things. I think subsequently you stunt the filmmakers. Like, I don't think Obi-Wan is that great. Like, I didn't go back and rewatch it, etc. But she directed some great episodes of The Mandalorian, and I think a lot of that has to do with that's fresh territory. We can do whatever we want, etc. So I think stuff like Skeleton Crew, Acolyte is going to allow these filmmakers to push things a little bit and not worry about the Skywalkers or the Rebellion and all that stuff. Like I said, cautiously optimistic about all these things. And I like that they're taking some swings with new ideas.
Where do you think something like an Ahsoka series could go wrong when you say cautiously optimistic? Where could it, in your mind as somebody that does this for a living, where could it go off the rails?
Well, look, I think we can all agree that the weakest of the shows is Boba Fett, right? which, we've talked about extensively. And it, like I said, I keep using the phrase weight of expectation, is sometimes these things collapse under the weight of expectation. In my opinion, Boba Fett is a really good idea that's not executed well. And the problem becomes, if you're a Rebels fan, et cetera, you're expecting a certain thing or a certain way, et cetera. Weirdly, I just feel like it doesn't have the Skywalker baggage, the Jedi baggage, or the, 40-year Boba Fett interpretation baggage. They'll be able to do some fun stuff with this. And Filoni knows those characters inside and out. He created them. So, I think there's something potentially very exciting. And the story's built in. Like you were just saying, we know that sort of ending of Rebels leads to whatever this is. And they've teed it up in Mandalorian and all that stuff. So I'm hopeful.
Do you think that Ahsoka, because when I think about Book of Boba Fett, there were some really great moments and some great visuals, and some of the actors were really a joy to watch. But the best episodes, if we're honest, were the ones where Mando showed up, and
like the elevation of quality of the show in those 2 episodes. In the end, when you call it the Book of Boba Fett, it really is sort of like a side mission to the Mandalorian series, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And by the way, I think there's a reason you haven't heard there's a Boba Fett season 2. I think it's better just to keep him in the Mandalorian universe, right?
Yeah. So, not that we're not going to see Boba Fett again, the Tim Morrison Boba Fett, but he's going to show up. If he shows up, he's going to show up in an episode of Mando. Could be Ahsoka as well.
With his gang, the way, whatever it ended, with his crew and with Fennec and all that stuff. And that's fine. It's like, I don't think the show lived up to the promise of Boba Fett as a gangster and all that stuff, but I think there's potential of him to have these run-ins with the Mandalorians and all that stuff. But and I'm curious how he fits into the Boba Fett. Really doesn't have a loyalty or fealty to Mandalore like the Mandalorian does,
right.
He does. Because in the end, Boba Fett was about him trying to create and find his own tribe, which he does by the time it's over. He went from the Sand People to that.
Yeah.
Whereas Mandalorian, he seems hell-bent on having some sort of forgiveness or redemption with his fellow Mandalorians, which, you remember Bo-Katan keeps telling him, you're part of this crazy group, this gang, this cult of Mandalorians who don't take off the helmets and all that nonsense. Whereas the other ones take off their helmets and they do all that. Like, does he find solace in that, or does he start his own tribe with the Grogu and all that stuff? Does he put his own gang together? Right, which I don't know. I'm just sort of wildly speculating.
Well,
I just know that this season is him.
We're seeing a whole lot of different
for the Darksaber.
Yeah, in these trailers, we're seeing a whole bunch of different Mandalorians, different color helmets, different color armor, and all of that. So it looks like he does have some sort of posse around him, whether or not they're all.
It's either he has a posse or they're trying to kill him.
Well, that's true. What do they call it? The children of the Watch. The Children of the Watch. Yeah, so you have that sect under the Armorer, and then of course you have the Bo-Katan sect. Do you think that a show like Ahsoka is going to have to go into the Mandalorian well and have cameos by Mando and Grogu and Boba Fett to tie it all together? Or do you think Ahsoka's going to be a pretty focused story?
I mean, anything could happen. I mean, that was the beauty of the second season of Mandalorian. It's so many curveballs and, with Luke and all that crazy shit. And I don't know. I don't think it's dependent on it, because I think, unlike Mandalorian, which, was a very clean first season, and then they sort of went balls out in the second season and it paid off. Ahsoka has the benefit of a pre-story, sort of like Andor to a degree, except the other way around, which is we don't know the payoff. We don't know what happened to these characters by the time we get to New Hope and all that stuff. There's some fertile territory there, but we're also skipping way ahead into that post-Return of the Jedi era, and I think there's a lot of fertile ground for them to cover. I don't think you need Mandalorian and Boba Fett and Luke when you have a rich cast of the Rebels gang and universe to sort of pluck and choose from. Like, what's his face, who was the Imperial general who defected? There's all these characters from Rebels you could bring over and have a lot of fun with, and it doesn't have to be about the Jedi and all that stuff. It's the search for a friend, and I think that's really interesting. And then, then Ezra will provide that fun Jedi stuff. And the other thing I'm hoping is they actually have like they did in Obi-Wan, is they actually have live action flashbacks to Rebels era stuff, so we can see Kanan and all these other characters in live action, which could be a lot of fun. That's just me hoping as a fan.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because I think the best parts of Obi-Wan are Hayden and Ewan in the prequel era. And I actually think they, instead of doing a second season of Obi-Wan, which I don't think they're going to do, I think they could do a fun live-action Clone Wars series with the two of them, like Anakin and Obi-Wan on like a great adventure.
That's what I would like to see. I would,
because they proved that was the most exciting part of the show,
right?
Was seeing them and like what made them such great friends and all that stuff, and before Anakin becomes a dick.
Right. That's what I want to see. And you know what? I loved the whole ride of the Kenobi series, and I certainly see it's where it fell short. But the one area that I was hoping to see was exactly that. I wanted to see live action Anakin and Obi-Wan being pals. I mean, it's done so well in the Clone Wars and animation, and Matt Lanter and James Arnold Taylor pull it off so well. And so here they were, and they were still at each other's throats. I mean, I know they were sort of being playful, but I was really hoping to see a glimmer of that friendship without the baggage of the.
I think there's a lot of potential with that, and there'd be a lot of interest in it. And the one success of the Obi-Wan show, despite issues with the execution of it, is it sort of, in its own way, elevated the prequels. Like, it was the first wave of nostalgia for the prequels with that generation who's under us, or at least under me, because I'm old. That allowed them to sort of, like my nephew's in his 20s, to sit there and remember going to see Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith and as a child, and that was his Star Wars, that those flashbacks in Obi-Wan meant something to him.
Yeah, the prequels officially became nostalgic, I think, with the Kenobi series.
Yes.
Really did.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And I think the prequels have aged pretty well. And I started saying this a while ago. And, a lot of guys in my generation, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear any sort of good news about the prequels. But I always liked them. And I do think they've aged pretty well. So, I mean, you could say what you want about the CG sets and stuff like that. It's just the whole tempo and tone of the story, I think, has aged well.
And by the way, you'll see that with the sequels at one point, too. As much as they're maligned in certain ways, there is a generation of children who grew up with Rey, Finn, and Poe, and when they eventually bring them back, and they will bring them back, there'll be a nostalgia for that.
And there will be attempts to fill in some of the gaping plot holes of the sequels as well.
Well, that's what I think Mandalorian's going to do that retroactively.
Yeah. I hope so. We saw.
No, I'm convinced. I'm convinced because I think we're going to see the birth of the First Order during the lifespan of the Mandalorian.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, FJ, what do you think about that shot that we saw in the Disney Plus version of the trailer of the Star Destroyers there on Coruscant. We had a lot of speculation about that. It was very brief, and it didn't amount to a whole lot of difference in the cuts of the trailers, but Star Destroyers docked on Coruscant we're
assuming that's Coruscant.
Right. We're assuming it is. We're assuming it is. I think, FJ, you were one offline that said, could that be Corellia? I suppose.
Yeah, that's what I thought when you showed it to me.
Yeah. It hadn't really dawned on me until you asked. But let's say that it is Coruscant and you've got docked Star Destroyers. Is that the makings of the First Order? Is it... I can't imagine it being Palpatine's final order. He wouldn't be doing that out in the
that's
in the broad
too early for
daylight.
I don't know because we don't know sort of about Snoke, and unless they're in the books and I don't know, and somebody's smarter than me, is we don't know the actual sort of when it's formed or when it's fully formed, and because the impression I get, and correct me if I'm wrong, is The Force Awakens, when they blow up the capital planet and all that stuff, is sort of the first strike of that new First Order. That was
it's sort of the inverse of A New Hope, where it's the rebellion has had their first successful move against the Empire. At the end of The Force Awakens, it's sort of the other way. It's that the First Order has had its first successful strike against the New Republic.
Right. So my point, to your point, which is it's still 30 years after what's in the Mando universe.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to have Star Destroyers and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I think we see the cloning stuff that they discover in the second season. I think we're going to see those initial things. I hope. Yeah. And that, by the way, there's so many, as we've learned in this show, there's so many Imperial remnants lying around that those Star Destroyers from that trailer could be, could be something they just drive past. You know what I mean?
Right, right. That's how trailers work, right?
It's just, they know it's a sexy shot and people like us will talk about it.
Right.
It could be nothing. We've seen Star Destroyers and Imperial stuff in Mandalorian, so none of it's going to be unusual. And I think, what is it? Operation Cinder? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
The Emperor's sort of thing. It'll be interesting to see if they can lay some of that out.
Yes.
And, see the early stages of it. But again, we've talked about this before, but I think that was the premise of the Rangers of the New Republic show, which again you see in this trailer, which I think they sort of transported some of those themes into the Mandalorian this season now that they know they're not going to do the show, which is, hey, something's going on out there. Like the guy from Kim's Convenience shows up and says to Cara Dune, hey, there's shit going down out in the galaxy. And I think that was the subplot that leads to the First Order stuff. I think some of that's going to transport into the Mandalorian. And they're going to, it's going to be interesting, the Mandalorian, in that how much time they spend with him, Darksaber and Bo-Katan and all this stuff. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's good.
How long that lasts and all that. It's gonna be really interesting. I'm really excited for it.
FJ, since you started talking about Mandalorian Season 3, we thought we would do a little something here.
FJ DeSanto. Prophet or loser.
So we're going to put you on the spot. We're going to ask for 3 prognostications. Since it's Season 3 of Mandalorian, we want 3 guesses, 3 predictions for the 3rd season. What's going to happen?
It's a tough one because, there's not a lot out there for it other than the trailers. I think, obviously, it's going to be him versus Bo-Katan for the fate of the Darksaber. I think that's one thing. I think
All right, so I'm gonna narrow that down. I'm gonna say that the fate of the Darksaber will be decided in season 3.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that new poster they put out today. It's like him holding the friggin' Darksaber. Like,
no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, there was a new poster that came out today that was him holding the Darksaber.
Okay.
Holding Grogu in one arm and the Darksaber in the other. And so I think that's going to happen. I think the thing they're really smart with these trailers is they do these trailers and it's only from the first couple episodes. So they're not showing tons like that are going to ruin it for you down the line, right? Yeah, there's the poster.
Yeah, there we go.
Sorry, I got confused. I thought he was holding Grogu, but he's not.
Grogu's down there. Oh, stop moving on me.
Yeah, he's in the ship. And so I think there's going to be that. I think, I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, they did such a good job in surprising you with the second season that I don't know what to expect. I think we're gonna learn more about that whole Rebel pilot, the Kim's Convenience guy, sort of like there's something else out there. I think that's going to happen. Something that's going to be addressed.
Right.
In it.
Yeah. He features prominently in the trailer.
Yeah.
Which gives us an indication. And he's outside of his X-Wing as well. So
and he's sort of picking up on the themes from the last season when he was talking to Cara Dune. So
yeah.
I just think they sort of reconfigured that to somehow fit in The Mandalorian. Yeah, and I think in the end, I think Grogu and Mando sort of just formed their own sect.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Oh, all right. Hold on. I'm writing this stuff down, guys.
Write it down.
We gotta make sure that we. So the first one I got is the fate of the Darksaber decided, and then I've got number 2 here. Grogu and Mando form their own. What would we call it in Mando? Did they call it a sect?
Sect, a house.
House.
Don't they often call it like the House of Ren, the House of so and so.
Also,
FJ, do you think the mysteries? Do you think the mysteries surrounding Baby Yoda's past will finally be resolved this season?
No.
No.
I mean,
you think they're just going to keep dangling that out there, huh, forever?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think I got a long-term prediction that you'll enjoy. I've said this on the show before, but I think you'll eventually see Grogu team up with Rey 10 years from now. You know, like when Mandalorian's like an old man, like what's his next thing? He goes and joins the heroes of the sequels and all that stuff. And yeah, I don't think look, he left Luke. I mean, that was the beauty of those 2 Boba Fett episodes that covered the Mandalorian was they were just sort of prologues to the sequel season of Mandalorian. And now you don't have to waste time figuring out what happened. Like they almost like weirdly painted themselves into a corner and used Boba Fett to paint themselves out of it. You know, I just don't think, there's some great shots of him using the Force in the trailer, but I don't think I think you might actually, you know what? I take it back because there are a couple of Jedi shots in the trailer, which could be flashbacks and him accessing his memory. So I sort of take back what I said, that you might get some of that backstory.
Yeah. Do you think it's the end of Luke Skywalker in the Mandoverse?
Then it's boring.
Sorry, I was talking over you. What did you say about what's boring?
I say if you go too deep into the kid's background, you unravel it and it's boring. You
got to leave the mystery or some element of mystery there.
Yeah, like it's okay if it's like he was found by the Jedi and brought here and was that, which is pretty much what we got already, right?
Yeah, there's still a lot of questions.
If you have a flashback and he meets Anakin and Obi-Wan? Yeah, that's great. But
no, more than that. More than that. I want to know why there's like 50 years of his life that's just, it goes black and it's missing. Why didn't he age? Why? And I don't think it's specific growth of his species. I think that he was put in some sort of status like that ember goo or carbonite or something.
It could be the case.
And then that just like froze him in time,
What's his face? The doctor from the first
Persian,
season's in the trailer.
Yeah.
So they're picking that back up.
Yep.
In terms of somebody wants him, which could be big part of the season is, and it looks like they're on Coruscant, in those moments in the trailer.
Yes.
So, it could be the hunt for Grogu has sort of picked up.
All right. I need one more. I've got fate of the Darksaber decided. I've got Grogu and Mando forming their own sect or house. I need one more. Season 3.
I'm going to say the search for the bad guys search for Grogu.
Star Wars 3, the search for Grogu resumes. Okay. All right. Okay. It's going to heat up. All right. Well, we're going to hold you to that. And of course, we'll have you on once it's all revealed across throughout the spring. We got a voicemail here at RFR that I thought was just when I heard it, I go, that's perfect for FJ. I think we really need to have you weigh in on this one. Okay. So here we go. This is EJ. EJ is reaching out. He doesn't know that he's going to get a bonus by having FJ answer the question in addition to Beck and me.
Hey, Jimmy and Jason. This is EJ, one of your inaugural patron supporters. Following up on a comment Jimmy made a few weeks ago on the flagship show about how much of a shame it is that the Kenobi story did not get made for the big screen. I just want to say I fully agree, and we'll take it actually one step further. I had the pleasure of attending an Omaha Symphony concert over the weekend, the music of John Williams. And while the music of Superman, E.T., Harry Potter, and Schindler's List was very well received, the energy in the symphony hall when the Star Wars theme and the Imperial March were played was absolutely incredible. The impact of Star Wars, simply cannot be overstated relative to its cultural impact. It was amazing. Young and old stood up, cheered, and gave a long-standing ovation. Here's my point. Well, I appreciate some of the content on Disney Plus. If Iger does not bring back Star Wars to the big screen, it would be a huge missed opportunity and quite frankly, malpractice. So here's my question for both of you. You're in charge. You get to make the call. Which story or stories would you put into production immediately and eventually in the movie theaters for the great relaunch, overdue relaunch of cinematic Star Wars? Love your show. Peace.
Thanks, EJ. I'm going to go to FJ to answer EJ's question. So, FJ, let's say that you're the new James Gunn. They come to you at Lucasfilm and they say, FJ DeSanto, you're in charge, and we need a Star Wars cinematic return, and you got to green light something. What would be the era, the story, the characters? What would you put back on the big screen or put on the big screen? Maybe it's not even a return.
I honestly don't know. I mean, I'm just being honest.
I'm sorry, EJ.
It's such a tough thing. By the way, I don't agree with EJ that Obi-Wan should have been a feature. I think it was better suited as a TV show. Just for the being able to expand that series, that story into something bigger. And we can talk about that another time. But, there's a part of me that the immediate go-to is something new with Rey, Finn, and Poe, like a standalone movie that is just them on some adventure, right? Some, and it's years later. So I would do something that would involve a lot of lightsabers, that like to fulfill that promise of people wanting to see Jedi running around, but it'd be new. It'd be something new with that. My other idea would be, how do you take all those TV shows and bring them all together into one big event? Where it's Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Boba Fett, Luke, all those characters on the big screen in one thing that pays off all the TV shows. Which I was under the impression there was some plan for that at one point, but I could be wrong. But something that, you know, the ultimate sort of finale of all the TV shows in one big adventure, one big team up. Those are my options. I mean, what I would not do is I would not do anything from the original trilogy era or the prequel era or the sequel era. Like, it's what I talk about, the weight of the expectation is find a filmmaker who can bring something new to it. That takes the core values of it, of heroes and villains and all that stuff, and create something fun. It can be Jedi vs. Sith. It could be some new version of that, but not with the baggage of the Skywalker family. You know, it's something that is original to Rey and those characters. And the only other option would be some Knights of the Old Republic kind of thing, where it's like you want to see the heyday of the Sith and the Jedi and all that stuff. Those, to me, are the options. You either go way, way back, where it's not even a prequel, it's just something that takes place in the past, or you do something that takes those characters who sort of didn't get their fair due in the sequels and sort of run with that. Like, Rey has trained a new generation. Like, everything we thought the sequels were going to be, kind of thing we can do with these characters. And, you know, Poe is the leader of the galaxy, and, you know, and Finn is this cool Jedi who's been liberating stormtroopers from around the galaxy for 10 years, and they haven't seen each other, and there's some new threat, you know, that's brand new, that's not tied into anybody's past or whatever. Just, you know, something simple, you know, like, get back to the basics of it. We have to go on a mission to do this, and we're invested in those characters. And, you know, by the time you'd make something like this, it's been almost 10 years since Force Awakens, you know.
Yeah, that the years are clicking away. You're not wrong there. I mean, I think that the you know, certainly the nostalgia timer is going.
Well, there's a combination of nostalgia timer, but there's also that those three characters didn't get their due. Right?
I agree with that.
Like, I don't think that, you know, like, when you watch the prequels, you sort of already go into it knowing it has to end a certain way. Anakin has to become Darth Vader. Obi-Wan has to go into hiding. You know, blah, blah, blah. You know, Padme's got to die. So you have that. In the original trilogy, you do get sort of a full circle thing that if you never went back to those characters, it's fine, right? But the sequel characters didn't get the arc they deserved, right? Like, they didn't get, you know, like, Finn in particular gets really shortchanged, Poe, you know, all that stuff. I think that, I shouldn't say shortchanged. I say there's more promise with those characters that you can explore and enjoy. And I think, yeah, to your point, the nostalgia will be there, but I also think people will be willing to follow those guys on another adventure against something new. Like, you know, no more Star Destroyers, no more First Order, no more troops. You know, like, my big problem with those sequels is there should have been so many new designs and new ships and new, even when you got to the Final Order and they were red, like, even that was different enough. Like, it should have started that way, right? And I just think if you can create a compelling villain for them to unite and fight, you know, it could be some kid whose family died at the end of Rise of Skywalker in that arena, right? Like, and he just studies the Sith ways. I'm going to start the new Sith. Like, who's Rey's evil equivalent? You know, Kylo Ren wasn't really that. You know what I mean? Like, but it doesn't have to get deeper than that. It's like good guys versus bad guys.
Right. Take it back to the basics.
Star Wars was good guys, bad guys, clear delineation between that, and we.
That's really what the magic was. You know, it of course it evolved as there was more canon and there was more lore that was added to it. But at its core, that's what George wanted to do, which was just tell a story that is primal to us as human beings, good versus evil. I'm going to take a stab here and answer EJ's question. I'm going to go a little different path from FJ, like directly opposite. I like your idea about Knights of the Old Republic. Mac and I were talking on the Bad Batch After Show this week about, maybe doing something with The Force Unleashed, either be an animated thing or live action. I like the idea of taking that story. I don't know about to the big screen, but I would go the opposite way, FJ. I would push every limit, every boundary to this augmented reality, this de-aging, and I would do Star Wars Episode 4.5. I would do an adventure with Han, Luke, Leia, right in between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. Put that on the big screen, and if fans didn't like it, they could lump it.
I would do that in animation. I would do that in animation, like Thrawn Trilogy or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because the problem is the de-aging thing only goes so far, right? Like, if you're going to expect somebody to sit through 2 hours of what you call Episode 4.5, right, you're going to have to de-age everybody, and that's if Ford would even do it, and Carrie Fisher's not alive. Whereas if you did an animation, you take a certain expectation off of it, right? And you can get.
I would recast them, and I would just do their likenesses. I would do like what they did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like,
but
yeah.
If you did that in live action, it doesn't work. If you do their likenesses in animation, then I think you can get away with. You can do tons of adventures of them. I'm actually shocked they haven't done an animated series of what you're talking about.
You know what? And when you brought up Guardians of the Galaxy, Mac will fall over. He won't believe that I'm going to say this, but I think I would go that direction and do something super whimsical and borrow from some of those goofy Marvel comics from the from the late 70s and early 80s
with the original.
That would be fun. I think that would be fun. But I want to hear what Mac would do. Mac has just been given. He is the president and CEO of Star Wars Incorporated. And what is he going to greenlight back to the big screen?
The popularity is undeniable. It's been the most successful thing that Disney has done since they acquired the brand. Critics love it. Fans love it. It makes money. The Mandalorian. They should make that a big budget blowout film. And if it is the situation that gathers together all of the streaming characters like Ahsoka and Boba Fett and all that, and it turns out to be a big blowout Avengers-style adventure, I think that's something that could have a lot of legs to it. Now, of course, they want to maintain the Mandalorian profile on Disney Plus because that's the thing that drives a huge lot of subscribers to that service. So they would have to suspend the production of that show to create a movie, I think. And that might be really hard for them to do right now.
They did it with X-Files, if you remember.
It has so much more.
Yeah, I think there's a way to do it. I think there's a way to
do it, yeah. And so I think that would be your most logical next best choice. I also like the idea of bringing back the sequel characters. I've talked about this before. There was so much equity dumped into them. We know these characters. We've been through a lot with these characters. And to see them come together in a really cohesive story that the three of them go on together, they're not all split up or whatever, I think that could be something that really works. But I think we still need the nostalgia cushion to get filled up with a little bit more air or material or whatever. So I'm looking at 10 years. on that. I think to really bank on solid nostalgia for the sequel characters and to expand their story, give it 10 years. So release that in the theaters in 2029. And all the kids who dressed up as Rey and Kylo and Captain Phasma for Halloween will be old enough then to, use their income, their expendable income to take their families to the movies and stuff. So, I mean, that's how it worked for us with the prequels, us meaning original trilogy fans. So I think those are your two best bets. But also, I really think that there's a lot of potential in a film featuring Darth Vader in his prime, not having a reunion with any characters or trying to resolve issues or anything like that. Just Vader being Vader and out there Order 66ing himself through the universe and maybe just give us a compelling story where maybe even Vader isn't in the forefront of the entire story. Maybe there's a protagonist that we can cheer for and Vader's the antagonist. And make it more like Friday the 13th, but with Vader. Let's just take it down to that. Yeah. He's got the breathing. He's got the striking from the shadows abilities. Why not make Vader a
he was almost a horror character slasher in Rogue One. I mean, that was right. Intense.
Similar vibes.
And in Kenobi, as he was choking out that kid. Okay, FJ, before we let you go, there's something that we've been wanting to do with you for a while, and I don't think you've ever done this. I don't believe that you have ever completed the Yoda questionnaire.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, man.
All right. Well, you're about to find out. Listen up.
The Yoda questionnaire.
Thank you, Richard Cheese. All right, FJ, this is a series of questions. We have to take them very seriously because they were hand faxed to us by the Jedi Master himself, Yoda, on Dagobah. And I say faxed because, technology runs a little slow on Dagobah, so email is not a thing there. It's still dial-up, actually. So he faxed these questions to us. And there are no wrong answers. There are some answers that are more correct than others, but there are no wrong answers. And we've had many, many guests here in the Cantina answer these questions, but I don't believe we've ever had you do this. So FJ DeSanto, what is your favorite Star Wars line? Line of dialogue from Star Wars, your favorite. You're a writer, recognize good dialogue. What's your favorite line in Star Wars?
That's a good question. It'd probably be something from Han Solo for sure.
They're all good questions. Yoda wrote these questions.
They appear to be simple questions on the outside, but when you consider them, they could be the most complex questions you've ever been asked.
Yeah, no, you're right. It would definitely be something from Han Solo. Maybe never tell me the odds or something, something like that. I'd have to really think about that one, but it's definitely something from Han Solo.
Han Solo. Okay. Han Solo, never tell me the odds. Okay. I think that's the first time we've heard that answer.
It's a good one. He's a gambler, reinforces his nature to take a chance to put himself at risk. He doesn't need to be hear anybody tell him that there's a chance of failure. They'll tell him the odds. He's only thinking 100% positive. That's a good lesson too, Don't dwell in negativity, Don't be a C-3PO thinking about the ways that everything could go wrong. Be like Han Solo.
We all know those people. Okay, we're going to venture over to the dark side. That was the light side, over to the dark side. What is your least favorite Star Wars line? Is there a line of dialogue that just makes you cringe every time you hear it?
Yeah, but it's when young Anakin is like, my name's Anakin, I'm not a slave, whatever the hell he says. I'm a person, I just cringe at that.
I'm a person. My name is Anakin.
Anakin. My friends call me Annie.
Also when he yells yippee. You know?
Yippee. Well, everyone was appalled by the
Yippee.
yippies.
Oh man.
The yippies was I mean, like, what is it? Who is this? Beaver Cleaver here in the Star Wars? You run around yelling yippee. You know, what's he? What next? He's going to ask his mom for 2 bits so he can go to the store to get a sarsaparilla. I mean, come on. Let's try to put the character. You know, have him reacting in a way that would be like,
all right, I want
acceptable.
you to be really excited. And you're really happy. Say something like, I don't know, like yippee or something like that.
Yes.
I think that was the coaching that probably went on in the set there. Okay, who or what? We want to be inclusive here, FJ. So we have to say who or what or which is your favorite Star Wars character. And we're including all of them. You can go
Han
legends
Solo.
on us. Oh wow,
He said Han Solo. He's not even going
Han
to think
Solo.
about
He
it.
didn't hesitate.
Nope. Done.
Han Solo,
Solo.
Qui-Gon, and Poe Dameron in that order.
Oh, so
we know you're
each
Poe Dameron.
trilogy represented with a favorite for FJ.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well played.
All right. Well, there's two sides to every coin.
Well, let's think about these characters. All 3 of them sort of march to the beat of their own drum. They're all rebels in a way.
Yes.
They don't necessarily go by the rule book. Han certainly doesn't. We know Qui-Gon doesn't. I mean, crap, his own Padawan sort of admonishes him and says, you'd be on the council if you just listen to these cats. And Qui-Gon's like, I don't care about a freaking council. They can bite me. And in Poe Dameron, of course, we know, he's against the system all the time. Princess Leia slapping him in the face, purple-haired ladies yelling at him. I mean, come on.
Yeah, all rebels, all rogues. That we're learning something about FJ. Okay.
Yeah, the Mavericks of Star Wars.
We're going to go the other side. Who or what is your least favorite Star Wars character? The one
Anybody on Canto Bight.
Whoa. Well, I don't know. They just came out of nowhere. And that's the only guy I could think of. Or the little guy that's like spitting out the coins. The
Mark
guy.
Hamill does the voice of it. I just can't, anything Canto Bight.
Yeah, Canto Bite Me.
Does that include the DJ?
That character had a lot of potential.
Well, listen, it's funny because we talked about like something that's a merit of the original Star Wars was the good guys versus bad guys. It was very black and white, very cut and dry. But you have a character like DJ who says, good guys, bad guys, they're all part of the same machine. He doesn't see a difference in that. And
which, by the way, is a great concept, but like all things with that movie, there's no payoff to it.
That's right.
Right? So he sells them out, and that's it.
And we never see him
nobody learned anything from that. Like, it didn't make Finn change sides or become this guy who sort of saw both sides of the equation or whatever. Like, that's my problem with it, is like, and that's my problem with all Last Jedi, is all good ideas just executed all wrong, right? And ignoring the first movie. So you're in the dilemma of the third movie having to pay off 2 movies that don't answer anything. But anyway, we've been through that.
Oh, so true, though. So true. What Star Wars moment makes you smile? Every time you see it, you might chuckle a little bit. You smile. You just love it.
It's Han and Chewie racing through the Death Star in the third act. When they're leaving.
Oh, yeah.
When he's screaming down
yelling.
the hallway. If I told
yelling
you
and
the amount of times as a 5-year-old I ran around my house
yes.
with the blaster rifle. You go, they're just running.
Yeah.
And then making a sharp turn around the corner of the dining room and shit like that. Like, that is probably one of my all-time favorite moments in movies.
Now, when they added on to it with the special edition and they put a lot more stormtroopers in there. Yeah. Did you like that, or
it didn't bother me? The special editions don't bother me.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was kind of a good touch, that one. Because I didn't get it, like Han's chasing them and they get to a dead end and they turn around and they're like waiting for him when he comes around the corner and they start blasting. But I never got it. I was like, well, why doesn't he shoot them? It's like fish in a barrel. He's got them trapped. But
I mean, you could also say, why are there 1,000 stormtroopers just standing in a room?
Because it's funny.
But, like as I say to you guys often, it's not real.
Well, I assume they're just being lectured, There's some sort of it's a roll call or something like that.
It's got to be something mundane. That's for sure.
But to be a kid I don't know if it resonates with other generations, but for kids in the 70s, seeing Han and Chewie run around those Death Star corridors, that was so exciting and something that we would reenact all the time as kids. I mean, that was just so exciting to see them running around those corridors. It felt like something us as kids could do. That's why I think we liked it so much.
Absolutely.
All right. What Star Wars moment makes you sad? Might be the one that just sort of brings a little tear to the eye, put a little lump in your throat.
Little lumpy.
In a good way, like in an emotional way.
Yeah.
It's when they're hugging each other at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Though that used to get me. Used to get me.
Always and by the way, when they hug at the end of Rise of Skywalker, the three of them, that gets me too.
Oh, yeah.
Because it feels genuine. Like the actors feel very genuine in that. But when Luke shows up at Endor at the end and he hugs Han, he hugs Leia, that always gets me emotional.
That's a great one.
Yeah, I understand that. It's also the final shot where they're all just like sitting on logs and it almost looks like they're getting ready to pose for a photo.
Yeah.
That one always sort of touched me too. I would remember like in the 90s when the Timothy Zahn novels were coming out. They were coming out once a year, Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and then The Last Command. And after I would read those books, I would then rewatch the entire trilogy. And every time we get to the end during that era and I'd see them all there and I'm like, oh, there's all my friends. I'm never going to see them again, I'd almost get choked up even thinking about it now.
Yeah.
What's the matter with me?
And you ever notice Billy D's just kind of clapping in the back there?
Yeah, he's just kind of, just sort of
having a hell of a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. He's locked in on the beat.
All right, FJ, got one last question. I'm going to modify this one just a bit because I know that you are you're a producer, you're a writer. So, if another Star Wars movie was to be made, and you were writing it, and George Lucas was the executive producer, you're in a room with George, and he's reading your screenplay for the first time.
He's wearing flannel,
of course, and jeans. What would you like him to say to you after he reads the last page?
Let's make this.
Let's do
it. Give it a green light. DeSanto, you're in.
FJ DeSanto, everybody. What a great time this was. There's never enough time with you, FJ. It's always great.
We didn't even get into Solo.
No, but you know what? I think we're just priming. We're priming for
I
the.
I don't want to talk about Solo. I just don't want to talk about Solo.
I'll go record my own thing and send it to you.
Well, you could do that.
Create his own podcast just to defend.
Just one
to defend
episode
Solo.
that you guys can broadcast.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you should do that. That would be a good idea.
You know what? Maybe FJ should do a Q&A. We're going to do guest Q&A on Patreon where he goes, you know what, Mac, what we're going to do? We're going to talk for an hour straight just about Solo.
I couldn't do it. I'd lose my mind.
Okay.
Doing
all right, hold on
like
a second. All right, hold on. I'm doing this right now on the air. I'm donating $50. I'm going to pay for FJ's. No, I'm doing it.
You can't do this. The mods won't let you.
I'm doing $50. I'm paying for FJ DeSanto to be a premium Patreon supporter for 1 month, which gets him 1 hour with Mac, one-on-one, mano-a-mano. He gets to pick the topic. Since I'm paying, the topic is Solo, FJ DeSanto, and Jimmy Mac.
We've already booked the next. We're booked through April.
You're making an exception for FJ.
I'm just going to record something and send it. I think.
Yeah, do that.
You know what? Here's what the listeners should send questions about Solo for me, and I'll answer them on a thing and send it to you guys.
Okay.
There you go. I like that.
All right.
We'll save
And it
Mac
doesn't cost me $50.
the
That's nice.
We'll save Mac
Ask
that.
FJ. Ask FJ.
Ask
And then-
FJ.
Yes.
All right.
So send your questions to show@rebelforceradio.com. We'll pass them along to Mr. DeSanto, and then we'll feature. You might hear your question about Solo read here on Rebel Force Radio.
Put a hashtag. You know what's really helpful? You can hashtag in your emails. So in somewhere in the body of the email, just do hashtag AskFJ. All one word, AskFJ. We'll search for them. We can find them. I do have you on record, FJ, as saying that Mandalorian Season 3, Fate of the Darksaber, will be decided. Grogu and Mando form their own house or sect, and that the search for Grogu on behalf of the First Order or Palpatine, whoever's behind it, will heat up in Season 3. We're going to find out here in just a month. It's pretty exciting.
That sounds realistic. I think that sounds realistic.
I love it. FJ, thanks, buddy. It's always great talking to you.
Thanks, guys.
It's awesome. Thank you so much for taking your time. Anything in the works with you that you might want
Lots
to
in the
talk
works, but I can't talk about it yet. Other than I continue my work with Vault Comics. We just announced a show for BET and CBS and Ridley Scott's company called Resonant, which we just put into development and hopefully we're going to make that. And there's a couple of big announcements. I'm back on Twitter, which I don't know.
Oh my God, they let you back?
Yeah, they let me back after like 5 years. So
wow. You needed a full ownership change. A full ownership change for FJ to finally get reinstated on Twitter.
It was pre-Elon.
Oh, it was pre-Elon.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's see how long this lasts.
No, I behave. I don't post that much, so.
All right. What is your handle on there, FJ?
At FJ DeSanto. It's same as Instagram and Twitter.
All right. Well, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this in real time. We're gonna put at on your lower third here, FJ DeSanto. Do you see that?
Oh, he's
happened
Jason
live.
is adjusting the graphics.
The lower third, the Chiron graphic here at FJ DeSanto. So it's official. He's back on Twitter, ladies and gentlemen.
He's back. He's back, and he's behaving himself.
All right.
Hide the women and children.
Thanks, buddy.
Just everyone hide.
All
right, man. Well, we love you. Thanks so much for taking the time out for us, and we will see you soon. Hashtag AskFJ. We'll be doing that. Thanks, buddy. Take care.
Thanks FJ.
Bye.
You rock, man.
See you, pal.
Cheers.
Rebel Force Radio.
We've already made that Star Wars reference.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars parody.
All right, Star Wars in pop culture. What's going on in the world of Star Wars references in non-Star Wars properties?
They're happening fast and furious as always, and you guys are always letting us know by tipping us off at show@rebelforceradio.com. We have an email from Lauren, who's been watching Gilmore Girls. She says, in addition to my love for Star Wars, I also love Gilmore Girls. I watch through it, and then when I finish last season, I just go back to season 1 and start over. Anyway, there's a Star Wars reference in season 6, episode 2, Fight Face. You find it on Netflix. I never watched Gilmore Girls.
I never got into the Gilmore Girls.
Lauren watches it. She binges, and then she binges again. She re-binges.
Wow.
So she's catching this reference to Gilmore Girl. It looks like it's a healthy one. I don't really remember what it was. So let's listen and be enthralled with the Star Wars reference in Gilmore Girls.
And they have those flashlight things.
Yeah, that's the right name for those flashlight thingies.
And Jedi powers of mind control, and they can move things so they're telekinetic. And they hover on their jet saucers over molten lava, and they can jump and fly around like they're in Cirque du Soleil.
Ah, coffee, please.
But what gives one Jedi Knight the edge over the other, huh? The ultimate advantage? They stand on a mound of dirt and declare, you can't win, I've got the high ground.
Dude, if he said it, that's the way it is. It's a fictional world.
He's 4 feet up a little slope, and that wipes out all the other guys' powers to fly, jump around, move things around with his brain, use his flashlight thingy.
You've got to learn the right term for that flashlight thingy.
This has been bugging me.
For months. We saw that movie months ago. You've got to let it go.
I can't.
George Lucas owns San Francisco now. That's a city. You can't argue with a man who owns a city.
All the other guy has to do is scurry onto land and run up a hill a bit, and then he has the high ground. I mean, they can fly jet pods, but they can't scurry.
Go on a website or something, okay? Because there are thousands, no, millions of your kind out there debating all the minutia of not just this Star Wars movie, but every Star Wars movie.
You dragged me to see these movies.
No, you wanted to see that movie.
So I can't critique it because I wanted to see it?
That's how it works.
She's got a lot of rules.
Yeah, she does.
Maybe
Jeez.
that shuts him up. Later in the episode, the guy he's on a roof painting a house, and they get in an argument. She's down on the ground level, and he throws the high ground. He plays that card.
Does he? Okay.
Yeah. But here you see where it all gets set up. And, I mean, he's got a point, the high ground thing. But, I mean, it's not like anything that can be debated because Anakin made his move. And look what happened. You do not want to make a move on a guy standing, even if it's 4 feet up off the ground. And he's got a ignited lightsaber. Any way you try to get at him, he's gonna countermeasure that move, and you're gonna pay with limbs on the floor. I think that's how it works. Yeah. I don't think there's any way around it. And I think Jedi know this, and they train. They train to be up on the high ground. That's what they try to achieve.
Well, the way Obi-Wan delivers this to Anakin, he goes, "It's over. Come on, you remember? I have the high ground." Were you missing?
You know the rules.
Class? This is the way it works.
You know how this works. Every time. Every time.
Yeah. And he's like, "You underestimate my power." Well, not so much.
There's just some things you can't do. You just can't do it. And he's attempting to blow off the whole high ground thing, and it's just it can't be done. It just can't be done. Everyone knows it, and so it can't be debated.
Get serious, Anakin,
because he did. He's right. He was charged up with superpowers, Anakin.
Crazy powers, the highest midichlorian count ever.
Not even he could achieve the high ground, the low ground to high ground attack.
No,
it just can't be done.
No,
it can't be done, and it's a waste of time to debate it.
Right.
Because we're not Jedi. We don't have lightsaber. And we don't know where to find them. Yeah. So how do we even...
Flashlight thingy.
I know. I mean, that just shows... That's
why the show's not on the air anymore. Clearly.
Lauren doesn't care, though. She just keep rewatching it over and over and over again.
Oh, but he's got a girl that is the one that forced him to watch Star Wars. That's pretty cool. She's a keeper.
Yeah. She's the girl of the dreams right there.
Yeah.
All right. One more.
Okay.
We got one more. This is from Coulter Gill. Coulter Gill, who's a Star Wars and pop culture regular. He's watching a lot of TV, and he's tipping us off to any time they mention Star Wars in any of his shows. He's watching Wizards of Waverly Place.
Well, I haven't thought of this show forever. You know who that guy is? Looking at the picture, he plays the dad. That's Dom DeLuise's son, Peter DeLuise.
Oh, yes.
And Selena Gomez.
Oh, that's a young Selena.
Young Selena Gomez. Right now, riding high on Only Murders in the Building on Hulu with Martin Short and Steve Martin. Great show.
Oh, my God. My family's so into that show.
It's a fun show.
They tell me I should watch it. So Disney's Wizards of Waverly Place. Season 4, Episode 5. Justin Russo is teaching a delinquent class to try and get back in his family's wizard competition, and is talking to his class about mastering spells.
Okay.
And that's when the Star Wars reference occurs.
There we go.
So he's a wizard, okay?
He's a wizard, Harry.
And from what we understand, most of the general citizens in the Star Wars galaxy consider Jedi to be wizards.
That wizard's a crazy old man.
Wizard. So I'm sorry, you caught me slipping into
you went into Klieg.
A Klieg, but it's Uncle Owen who says that.
Right. It's not.
But I did. I took it so far, I amputated my left leg. It was really getting into character. There, and Swank saw it happening.
I did. That's why you got to be an all-access member on Rebel Force Radio Patreon, so you can see it. You can see the look of recognition as I see the
Ruthless, mindless monsters. All right. So Wizards.
Yeah.
Wizard. Here's Wizards of Waverly Place.
The key to mastering a spell is focusing your inner wizard and summoning all your power. It's a little something I like to call using the Force.
The Force? You ripped it off of Star Wars.
Oh, did they rip it off from me?
And you ripped that off, too.
He goes, or did they rip that off of me? And he waves his hand, with the Jedi, the suggested Jedi hand. And so that dude's like, you ripped that off, too. Like, he's the only one who's seen Star Wars at Waverly Place. But if I was a wizard, I would rip off Jedi stuff all the time,
Oh.
I'd be like, do or do not, there is no try. I'd be saying, I would just blatantly rip off the Jedi, as a matter of fact.
I like this idea. So Mac has real magical powers and uses his real magical powers as fake movie magical powers. That's fantastic.
Well, that's what makes it real. You see.
Right.
That's how I bring it into reality. Well, thanks everyone who checked in with these Star Wars and pop culture contributions to the show. If you hear Star Wars being mentioned in sitcoms, stand-up act, music video, a newscast, wherever, send it to a show at Rebel Force Radio. It's just not another podcast. We get okay. Sometimes it'll be, these guys on this podcast start talking about Star Wars. That's not Star Wars and pop culture.
No.
Star Wars and pop culture it shows up in like a professional production where you wouldn't expect it to show up.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what we're looking for here. Not like your local buddy's sports cast. Somebody hits a ball like a Jedi.
That doesn't count.
That doesn't count.
No.
If it's a podcast of a famous person, maybe then, It's like Gilbert Gottfried said something funny about Star Wars on his old podcast. Check it out, and that counts.
R.I.P. Yeah.
So just use your head. Use your head.
Yeah. All right.
Pop culture being the key term there. Pop culture.
Yes. It can't. Yeah, because podcasts, well, that's what we do. We review pop culture. I mean, of course, there's going to be references to pop culture in a Star Wars podcast. You would assume
all day.
That. We're going to wrap things up here this week. Thanks so much for hanging with us. Big thank you and shout out to FJ DeSanto, our guest this week in the Cantina. Great guy, FJ DeSanto, back on Twitter. Love it. He's at back. FJ DeSanto.
Somehow, FJ's returned.
Twitter magic. I don't know. Also, thanks to everybody who's a supporter of Rebel Force Radio on Patreon. So if you're able to support the show, we appreciate that very much. And you can do so at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. You get weekly full show video. That's right. The podcast you're listening to now, as I said earlier, you see or you hear us referencing visuals. Well, you can see those visuals when you become a all-access member. Also, exclusive podcasts that you can't find anywhere else. You're not going to subscribe to them on Apple Podcasts or in Audible or Spotify, anything like that. You can only get them through Patreon and the Rebel Force Radio channel there. It's just a great community of Star Wars fans, some of the absolute best. You hear from them on the after shows. A lot of the calls are Patreon supporters because we put them to the head of the line. So if you want to hang out with people like them, please join us over at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio or go to the website rebelforceradio.com and hit that Patreon banner and boom, you'll be able to select the membership tier that fits your budget. Also, please watch us on YouTube. We got a lot of content on YouTube. We've been at this podcast game for 15, 16 years now. So a lot of that is over at youtube.com/Rebel Force Radio, including all of the live after shows that we've been doing. Plus there's, you were talking about the intro that we did on the video, Jim. It's a great way to go and rediscover and relive some of those live shows that we do on location, live at Reggie's, live at the 5th Star Wars Celebration Anaheim a couple years ago. They're all there, these live events that we do, and they're fun. They're little time capsules. What were they talking about in 2017? Well, find out. Go to YouTube and the Rebel Force Radio channel. We're also on all of the social media outlets like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find us at Rebel Force Radio. We are at RFR Rebel Force on Twitter, and the website for all things and everything Rebel Force Radio, rebelforceradio.com. But if you really want to help us out, the best thing you could do is keep listening, keep downloading, and keep spreading the word about RFR to your friends. If you're around the water cooler at the day job and the subject of Star Wars comes up, say, hey, have you ever listened to Rebel Force Radio? They go, Rebel Force what? Rebel Force Radio. It's a great podcast. So please keep making those recommendations to the Star Wars fans in your life. So keep listening. Subscribe if you can. If your podcatcher of choice lets you do so, please leave a review. Just one rule, please.
Make it good.
And we'll be back next week with more Rebel Force Radio. Don't forget to join us on Wednesdays, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time for the Bad Batch After Show. Those are live streams that we do, so be sure to watch the Bad Batch episode that drops on Wednesdays, and then join us at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for a discussion, and we'll take your calls, read your chats. It's a great time. We'll see you. That's it. We'll see you next week for Rebel Force Radio. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
The Force will be with you, always.